Okay, this is your little mini lecture on the German economy, and particularly on the issue of reparations. So, one of the things that's happening is that the French are demanding huge sums of money from the Germans, and the German economy was pretty much destroyed in World War I. So they'd converted everything to these wartime efforts, but they'd had huge losses in labor. They hadn't been able to procure the natural resources that they needed, and so as a result, their economy was in shambles. So what happens is that they make one of these payments, and this is another one of those issues that gets the Weimar Republic into huge amounts of trouble, because the German people don't like the idea that they're going to have to make these payments, that they're being blamed for the war and all the rest of that. And they don't even have enough money to rebuild their own economy, and here they're being expected to pay for the French rebuilding their economy. So the Germans go ahead and default, and the Americans come rush in. And remember, the American economy in the early and mid-1920s was roaring. Okay, those were our roaring 20s, and we had lots of money to lend people. Our banking system was very well established. So we negotiated this great deal for the Germans. We renegotiated the terms of the repayment and then offered to lend them the money to pay the French. Now, what's interesting is that French heavy industry had also been really damaged badly by the war. So the French didn't have the capital goods they needed in order to rebuild their economy. So they were going to be buying them from the Americans. So what we wound up in effect with in the mid-1920s was that American bankers had figured out a way to loan money to the Germans to buy, so they would pay the French, and that way they could buy American goods. Okay, and that just returned money to the American economy on very favorable terms. So it was a really good deal for the Americans up until, of course, our banking system collapsed, and then there was no more money to go around. So one of the things that the Germans do also in response to this is they say, well, we can't borrow any more money. What we're going to do is we're going to basically print more money. So if the sums that they had to pay were in a fixed amount, $100 million. What they simply did was they printed $100 million. Problem, of course, is that supply and demand applies to money just as it does to everything else. If you increase the supply of money without changing the demand, the price of money is going to go up. That's inflation. In Germany, inflation was rising so quickly that it got to a point called hyperinflation. Hyperinflation is the condition where you start traveling around with wheelbarrows of money in order to buy a loaf of bread. Okay? Basically, your money becomes worthless. So in the long run, when we start thinking about economic challenges, or why doesn't the United States do something different with its debt, why doesn't it print more money, or why don't we allow for more inflation, inflation can get out of control, and that's going to hurt people whose wages are fixed more than anything else.